The raw Montana wilderness held a fragile hope for Eleanor Ainsworth's wounded soul. Alone in her secluded cabin, nestled amidst the snow-dusted pines, her existence felt as barren as the frosted landscape stretching beyond her window. A recent agonizing divorce, the heart-wrenching loss of her cherished golden retriever Buster, and the haunting silence of her empty home echoed her profound loneliness, leaving her adrift and questioning her very place in the vast world. Then, on a frigid December afternoon, a faint, desperate cry sliced through the hushed stillness of the woods. Driven by an instinct she couldn't ignore, Eleanor plunged into the dense trees, her heart pounding with a mixture of apprehension and a flicker of something akin to purpose. Following the fragile sound, she stumbled upon a sight that pierced her very core. A young bobcat caught in a cruel trap, its small body trembling with pain and fear. Its golden eyes, wide and luminous, locked onto hers, conveying a raw plea that transcended the boundaries of species. A desperate cocktail of terror, a fragile spark of hope, and something profoundly deeper that resonated with the ache in Eleanor's own heart. What began as a simple act of compassion, a stirring of empathy in her desolate world, blossomed into an extraordinary journey for both woman and wild creature, a testament to the fact that the most profound connections often aren't the ones we actively seek, but rather the serendipitous bonds that find us in our most vulnerable moments. This is a tale of survival against the odds of a transformative connection forged in the heart of the wilderness, a bond that dared to cross the perceived chasm between human and animal. And what transpired 2 years later would shatter every preconceived notion Eleanor held about love, and the possibility of second chances, proving that life's most beautiful chapters can unfold in the most unexpected ways. The November wind, a mournful lament, whistled through the skeletal branches of the trees, carrying the last brittle remnants of autumn's golden tapestry. Eleanor Ainsworth, her silhouette framed by the warm glow of her cabin window, watched as nature braced itself for the harsh embrace of another Montana winter. At the age of 52, she had envisioned a different life, one filled with the joyful cacophony of grandchildren's laughter, perhaps, or at the very least the comforting solidity of a decades-long marriage. Instead, here she stood embarking on a solitary new beginning in a remote cabin 20 miles outside of Whitefish, Montana. The whispers of the ancient forest, her only companions. 3 desolate months had crawled by since the finality of her divorce papers severing her 28-year bond with Richard. The ink had barely dried on the decree. When the devastating news arrived, he'd already moved in with Sarah, his 35-year-old dental hygienist. The sting of betrayal still lingered, a dull ache in her chest, but it paled in comparison to the gaping void left by the passing of Buster, their beloved elderly golden retriever, who had slipped away just weeks after the divorce was finalized. It felt as though the universe was relentlessly stripping away every vestige of comfort she had ever known. The cabin, a spontaneous purchase, fueled by her share of the divorce settlement, was met with disbelief by her grown children, who resided on opposite coasts. They feared their mother had finally succumbed to loneliness, lost her grip on reality. Perhaps they were right, Eleanor mused. But after 3 decades of defining herself through others, someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's dental office manager, she desperately craved the profound silence that only the untamed wilderness could offer. She had secured a part-time position at the local library in Whitefish, a haven of hushed whispers and towering shelves, allowing her to immerse herself in the world of stories 3 days a week. The remaining 4 days were dedicated to exploring the forests surrounding her cabin, slowly attuning herself to the ancient rhythms of the wilderness and painstakingly tentatively rediscovering the woman who existed beneath the layers of roles she had shed. The essential Linda Ainsworth standing alone. It was during one of these solitary sojourns in the early days of December that the fragile sound reached her. A weak, pitiful cry that seemed jarringly out of place amidst the familiar symphony of the forest. Eleanor froze the crunch of her hiking boots on the light dusting of snow, abruptly silenced as she strained to pinpoint the source of the distress. The cry came again, a little louder this time, pulling her off the well-worn trail and into a dense thicket of pine and spruce. There, huddled beneath the dark shadow of a fallen log, lay a young bobcat. It couldn't have been more than a few months old, its spotted fur still bearing the soft, downy texture of kittenhood. One of its hind legs was grotesquely ensnared in what appeared to be an illegal trap, the cruel metal teeth biting deep into its delicate flesh. Eleanor's heart constricted with a visceral pang of empathy. She had encountered bobcats before, fleeting glimpses of wild grace from a respectful distance, always proud and untamed. But this creature's eyes, large and luminous as molten gold, met hers with a heart-wrenching mixture of terror and a desperate pleading hope that transcended the boundaries of their different worlds. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, as she slowly knelt in the biting snow. "What happened to you?" The rational part of her mind screamed a warning. This was dangerous. Even a young, injured bobcat possessed the potential to inflict serious harm. She should call the wildlife authorities, wait for the professionals. But the temperature was plummeting rapidly, and the weak winter sun would soon dip below the horizon. By the time help arrived, the fragile creature might not survive the brutal cold. Drawing upon years of experience handling frightened felines at the local animal shelter where she volunteered, Eleanor carefully unwound her thick wool scarf and approached the trapped animal with agonizing slowness. The bobcat kitten watched her every move, too weak to fight, but its intelligent golden eyes tracked her with unwavering intensity. "I'm going to help you," she murmured softly, using the same soothing tone she had once employed to calm Buster during violent thunderstorms. "But you have to trust me just a little." It took what felt like an eternity, nearly an hour of painstaking maneuvering, her fingers growing numb with the encroaching cold. But Eleanor finally managed to wrap the scarf gently around the bobcat's head, shielding herself from those sharp, tiny teeth while she wrestled with the unforgiving trap. At last, with a groan of protesting metal, the mechanism released its cruel grip. The small leg was badly swollen and lacerated, a miracle it wasn't broken, considering the sheer brutality of the trap. The bobcat, however, was severely dehydrated and alarmingly thin, suggesting it had been trapped for at least a day or two, enduring unimaginable pain and terror. "You're coming home with me," Eleanor declared, a surge of fierce protectiveness overriding the voice of reason in her mind. She knew it was probably an act of sheer folly, a decision fraught with potential complications, but she couldn't bear to leave this vulnerable creature to its inevitable fate. Gently, carefully, she wrapped the small, trembling body in her thick down jacket, creating a secure, warm bundle that offered a measure of comfort to both of them. The bobcat, whether from sheer exhaustion or some innate understanding of her intentions, remained surprisingly still during the arduous 40-minute trek back to her cabin, nestled deep within the silent woods. Once inside the familiar warmth of her home, Eleanor transformed her mudroom into a makeshift recovery ward. She laid down soft old blankets, creating a cozy nest, and set up a makeshift litter box filled with sand from her garden. Her wilderness first aid kit, a testament to her newfound connection with the untamed world, proved invaluable as she carefully cleaned and dressed the bobcat's injured leg, grateful for the comprehensive wilderness first aid course she had taken shortly after moving to Montana. "You need a name," she murmured to the small, still creature as she finished bandaging its leg. The bobcat had remained remarkably stoic throughout the procedure, its intelligent golden eyes fixed on her every move. "How about Sam? It suits you. Strong but gentle." That first night's sleep eluded Eleanor. She found herself constantly checking on Sam, her heart aching with a tenderness she hadn't felt in what seemed like an eternity. She offered him small sips of water and tiny pieces of the chicken she had planned for her own dinner, which he accepted with cautious trust. By the time the first rays of dawn painted the snow-covered landscape outside her window, Eleanor realized with a profound certainty that she had already fallen irrevocably in love with this small, fierce creature and his surprisingly gentle demeanor. The next few weeks dissolved into a blur of veterinary research, gleaned from the internet, meticulous feeding schedules, and diligent wound care. Eleanor found herself unexpectedly grateful for the reliable internet connection she had insisted on having installed, spending countless hours poring over articles on bobcat rehabilitation and proper wildlife care. She was acutely aware that her actions bordered on the illegal. Private citizens were generally prohibited from keeping wildlife without the necessary permits. Yet she couldn't bring herself to turn Sam over to the authorities, not while he was still so fragile, so utterly dependent on her care. As the crisp days of December bled into the stark beauty of January, Sam's leg healed with remarkable speed. He graduated from the confines of the mudroom to having free rein of the cabin's enclosed back porch, a space Eleanor had carefully curated to mimic his natural environment, allowing him to maintain his wild instincts while he recovered. She made a conscious effort to minimize direct physical contact, though her heart ached each time she had to resist the overwhelming urge to pet his soft fur or offer comfort beyond the essential care he required. It was during this delicate period that Eleanor began to observe something truly extraordinary about Sam. Unlike most wild animals in captivity who typically remain defensive and aloof, Sam exhibited an unusual level of intelligence and keen awareness in his interactions with her. He would watch her through the porch windows as she went about her daily routines, his head tilting with a curious intelligence whenever she spoke aloud to herself, a habit she had developed during her months of profound solitude. One particularly brutal winter night in February, Eleanor was jolted awake by the insistent scratching of something against her bedroom window. To her astonishment, she found Sam perched precariously on the outside sill, seemingly seeking refuge from the violent mountain storm that had suddenly descended. Against her better judgment, but utterly unable to resist the silent plea in those luminous golden eyes, she cautiously opened the window and allowed him in. That night became an unspoken turning point in their unusual relationship. Sam curled up on the braided rug near her bed, no longer entirely wild, yet far from tame, existing in some impossible liminal space between two worlds. Eleanor lay awake for hours, the rhythmic rise and fall of his spotted flanks a comforting presence in the stillness, wondering if this messy, complicated, utterly unexpected bond was what a second chance truly looked like. As winter began to reluctantly loosen its icy grip on the mountains, Eleanor knew she had to confront the reality of Sam's situation. He was growing stronger with each passing day, his injured leg now barely betraying a limp. More importantly, his wild nature was reasserting itself with increasing intensity. He would stalk imaginary prey through the porch windows, his lithe body coiled and ready to pounce on unsuspecting birds or even the delicate dance of falling snowflakes. The innate primal behaviors crucial for his survival were resurfacing. It was during one of her quiet shifts at the library that Eleanor overheard a conversation that would irrevocably alter the course of their intertwined lives. Two regular patrons were animatedly discussing a newly established wildlife rehabilitation center located just outside of Kalispell, a scenic hour's drive away. The center specialized in the delicate art of preparing captured or injured wild animals for their eventual release back into their natural habitats. That evening, Eleanor sat on her porch watching Sam intently as he practiced his hunting skills on a swirling pile of leaves tossed about by the gentle breeze. Tears streamed silently down her face as she made the difficult call to the wildlife center. It was time. Sam deserved a chance at a real life, not this carefully constructed, in-between existence she had created for him out of love and a profound sense of responsibility. The wildlife officers who arrived to collect Sam were kind, but firm, their professionalism tinged with a genuine understanding of Eleanor's emotional turmoil. They meticulously explained the center's rehabilitation and release protocols, assuring her that they would dedicate themselves to ensuring Sam's successful return to the wild. As they gently coaxed him into the transport cage, a wave of grief washed over Eleanor, a fresh wave of heartache that felt as sharp and agonizing as the day she had found him trapped and helpless in the snow. "You did the right thing, Eleanor," Officer Sarah Jenkins said softly, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "He's young enough. He hasn't lost his wild instincts. We'll make sure he knows how to hunt and survive before we release him." The ensuing months were more challenging than Eleanor had anticipated. She threw herself into her work at the library with renewed vigor, rediscovered the solace of long hikes in the surrounding forests, and tried to fill the Sam-shaped void in her life with new routines and quiet rituals. She followed the rehabilitation center's updates with unwavering attention, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and bittersweet longing when she learned that Sam had successfully completed their program and had been released into a protected wilderness area approximately 15 miles from her cabin. Life, in its relentless march forward, continued. Eleanor planted a vibrant garden, and that spring started a well-attended book club at the library, and slowly, painstakingly, began to feel less like a woman defined by loss and more like someone tentatively building something new and meaningful. She still missed Sam with a fierce ache in her heart, a constant dull throb beneath the surface of her days. But she found a measure of quiet comfort in knowing he was where he belonged, living the wild, untamed life he was meant to live. Then, one extraordinary morning in early summer, nearly 2 years after she had first found Sam ensnared in that cruel trap, Eleanor stepped onto her porch to water her hanging baskets and discovered a freshly killed rabbit lying carefully placed by her door. Initially, she dismissed it as the work of one of the many predators that roamed the area, a random act of nature. But something about the deliberate placement, the way it seemed more like a silent offering than a discarded kill, sent a jolt of recognition through her heart, a sudden, inexplicable surge of emotion. She began to pay closer attention to the subtle sounds of the forest surrounding her cabin, especially during the hushed hours of early morning and the fading light of dusk. Sometimes she would catch a fleeting glimpse of movement in the dense underbrush, or hear the distinct soft thud of large paws padding across her porch when she was inside. Then the gifts began to appear with increasing regularity. Plump rabbits, bushy-tailed squirrels, even the occasional grouse, always placed in the same deliberate spot by her door, a silent acknowledgement. One misty dawn in late August, Eleanor awoke early to witness the sunrise painting the majestic mountains in hues of gold, and rose a cherished habit she had cultivated during her months with Sam. As the first rays of light pierced through the trees, illuminating the clearing before her cabin, she saw him. Larger now, his muscles more defined his coat, a richer tapestry of browns and blacks, but with the same unmistakable, intelligent golden eyes she remembered so vividly. Sam sat at the edge of her clearing, watching her with that familiar, endearing head tilt. "Hello, old friend," she whispered, her voice thick with a wave of overwhelming emotion. Sam didn't approach, maintaining a respectful distance that spoke volumes about his restored wild nature, but he didn't flee either. Instead, he settled into a comfortable position, his thick tail curled neatly around his paws. And they watched the breathtaking sunrise together, a silent communion between two souls who had once shared an extraordinary bond. From that day forward, Sam became a regular, albeit distant presence in Eleanor's life. He would appear every few weeks, sometimes leaving his silent gifts, sometimes simply watching her from the shadowy embrace of the forest edge. He never attempted to recapture their previous semi-tame existence, and Eleanor never tried to encroach upon his hard-won wildness. Instead, their relationship evolved into something perhaps even more profound, a deep, unspoken connection between two beings who had helped each other heal in their own unique ways, and now shared a mutual respect and understanding that transcended the boundaries of language and species. Word of Eleanor and Sam's unusual relationship began to ripple through the small, close-knit community. Initially, some were skeptical, even voicing concerns about the potential danger of having a wild bobcat regularly visiting a residential area, however remote. But as time passed and Sam consistently demonstrated no aggression toward humans, their story transformed into something akin to a local legend, a whispered tale of an unlikely friendship forged in the heart of the Montana wilderness. Eleanor's children, who had once worried about their mother's isolation, now visited more frequently, drawn by the almost mythical possibility of catching a glimpse of the famous bobcat. Her daughter Emma, an environmental lawyer in Seattle, was particularly moved by the story and began dedicating her efforts to drafting legislation aimed at banning the inhumane type of trap that had nearly claimed Sam's life. The library where Eleanor worked embraced the unique tale, launching a successful children's reading program called Sam's Story Hour, where Eleanor would share captivating tales of wildlife and the crucial importance of conservation with wide-eyed young listeners. She never embellished her own remarkable story. The truth, in its raw and poignant beauty, was captivating enough. Instead, she used her experience with Sam as a powerful teaching tool, instilling in the children a deep respect for the wild creatures who shared their world and the vital importance of maintaining appropriate boundaries with them. 5 years after finding Sam trapped and near death in the snow, Eleanor sat at her computer putting the final touches on a children's book she had lovingly written about their extraordinary journey. The manuscript, tentatively titled The Bobcat Who Came Back, had already garnered enthusiastic interest from several publishers. Eleanor planned to donate a significant portion of any proceeds to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center that had played such a crucial role in preparing Sam for his triumphant return to the wild. That evening, as the sun dipped below the jagged peaks of the mountains, casting long shadows across the snow-dusted landscape, Eleanor heard the familiar soft padding of paws on her porch. She moved quietly to the window and saw Sam depositing his latest offering. A plump, freshly caught rabbit. He looked up, his intelligent golden eyes meeting hers through the glass. And Eleanor felt the same profound connection and the same stirring of deep affection that had resonated between them on that first fateful day in the silent woods. "Thank you," she whispered, though she knew her voice couldn't reach him through the barrier of the window. Her gratitude extended far beyond the simple gift of the rabbit. She was thanking him for his unwavering trust when he was vulnerable and injured, for giving her a renewed sense of purpose during a time of profound loneliness, and for showing her that love often manifests in the most unexpected forms. Sam flicked his ears in silent acknowledgement, then melted back into the gathering darkness, a fleeting shadow disappearing into the embrace of the ancient forest. Eleanor watched the empty space where he had been, her mind swirling with the strange, unpredictable paths that life sometimes forges for us. Her divorce, which had once loomed as the catastrophic end of everything she had known, had unexpectedly become the catalyst for an extraordinary new beginning. Her impulsive decision to seek solace in this remote cabin, a choice her friends and family had questioned with worried frowns, had led her to a connection that not only profoundly changed her own life, but had also rippled outwards, touching the lives of others in ways she could never have foreseen. As she prepared for bed that night, a sense of profound peace settled over Eleanor. She thought about the long and winding journey she had undertaken, the transformation from the desolate, lonely woman who had first arrived at the cabin to the woman she was now. She was still solitary in many ways, yet the crushing weight of loneliness had lifted, replaced by a quiet sense of purpose and connection. Her life was now rich with the simple joys of sharing her story, the quiet satisfaction of her work at the library, and the comforting knowledge that somewhere out in the vast, starlit darkness, a wild bobcat remembered her kindness and chose to return it in his own unique, untamed way. The next morning, Eleanor would retrieve Sam's latest offering, placing it far from her cabin, maintaining the delicate, unspoken boundaries between their two worlds. She would then go about her day, perhaps working on her beloved book or preparing for the next enthusiastic gathering of young readers at Sam's Story Hour. And she would keep a watchful eye on the edge of the forest, knowing that while weeks or even months might pass before his next appearance, the extraordinary connection they shared remained unbroken, a testament to the enduring power of unexpected bonds. Their story had become more than just a heartwarming tale of a woman who nursed an injured bobcat back to health. It was a profound testament to the remarkable healing power of unexpected connections, the quiet wisdom of knowing when to hold on, and perhaps more importantly, when to gently let go. It was a living embodiment of the beautiful truth that love in its myriad forms possesses the transformative power to reshape our lives in ways we could never have possibly imagined.